Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Sales Scoop. This is a fortnightly live show for startup tech founders who want to improve how they sell. Every episode, we bring you the hottest topics in the world of startup sales and the shiniest pearls of wisdom from sellers at the absolute top of their game. I'm your host for the day, Alistair Cole. I'm a computer scientist and ex-software engineer with 2 decades experience in sales and marketing. I'm a co-founder of the Uplift Partnership, and I'm joined today by Kieran Gill. Hi, Kieran.
Hi, Alistair. Hello, everybody. My name's Kieran Gill, co-founder of the Uplift Partnership, and I have 25 years worth of experience in B2B business development, in sales, in tech, sales operation, and also in banking.
Thanks, Kieran. And we're here for a really important topic today, how to get your stalled deals moving again and over the line. Something that we've heard quite a lot recently. We've had a fairly busy month out there, haven't we, my friend? And talk a little bit about why we've chosen this as a topic for today.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that just came up in conversation. Through July, we've been to several different kind of events. We've been lucky enough to be around London to different things, as you can see here. And I had lots of conversations with different founders, different types of businesses. And one thing just kept on coming up in conversation that, it was that deals were stuck. They weren't moving. Things that seemed to be, very positive at the start of the year, all that lead generation that everybody was doing. And then suddenly now, they're just not moving forward. And this wasn't, it's quite surprising in the sense that it was a very common theme that kept on coming up in different conversations. Everybody was being very positive about things moving forward. However, those deals just didn't seem to be closing.
Yeah, and that I think we covered spoke to about 100 founders over those 3 big events. I felt like we rinsed every single startup booth, and we were the last ones kicked out of every sideshow saloon across those kind of like 2 or 3 weeks. It was an inspirational time, but like you say, people really struggling with progressing things along the pipeline, right? Real tangible frustration. And for a lot of people, it felt like almost all their deals were stuck. That seemed to come through to me. So, when we talk about deals being stuck, talk us through where that might happen in the sales process.
Well, let's have a look at what's happening here. So what you have is that, early on in the sales process, we're talking about lead generation. Now, these deals tend not to get stuck, or you wouldn't say that these are stuck. They might be slowly progressing, or these people might not be in the buying window. We've spoken about that before. They're not ready to purchase. They're not interested in meeting with you, and that's what happens. As you go along your sales process, and we're talking about complex selling here, we're talking about where you have to meet the client maybe potentially several times before you put an actual proposal together. And then what you'll do is you'll put a proposal together and you reach out to the client, and then there might be some kind of conversation, but then they suddenly go quiet and they suddenly disappear and they no longer answer your calls anymore. And you're thinking to yourself, is it something that I said? Is it the way I look? What's happened here? Why am I suddenly, why was this person who was so positive at the start of the sales process suddenly started ghosting me? And that is a common theme in complex B2B selling.
Yeah, we've touched on a few of the kind of classic reasons why deals might get stuck. We're going to boil it down to our big 3 for today, but what are some of the classic things that you see, Kieran, and reasons why deals might get stuck?
Well, okay, so classically, what tends to happen, one of the most classic things is not having a real understanding of what the client needs your product. So a lack of information or a lack of discovery in the sales process. So, too busy trying to sell what you have, not trying to listen to what the client actually needs or wants. So inefficient understanding of need from the client's point of view. And that then tends to cause a lack of urgency.
Yeah.
So from a client's point of view, there is no urgency to do this. To tell you the truth, they can't see the value. They can't see the return on investment. It sounds nice, but you know what? I can do something else instead because that's less risky. The other thing could be that there could be a change in the actual company itself. So, suddenly priorities within the industry change, so, suddenly what was hot suddenly isn't hot any longer. So not actually understanding your market can turn into a bit of a problem as well.
Yeah, and we've heard so much over the last few weeks about this challenge about deals being stuck, and at the same time, it's something we see from a kind of scientific point of view, from a scoring point of view. Our 360 sales diagnostic product analyzes the maturity and capability of a startup sales function in 7 areas, and underneath those 7 areas, there are 52 different metrics we take in order to ascertain exactly how well that startup is doing in sales. So we see this as well in the numbers, as well as what's happening when we talk to startups, and that 360 and the other products and services that the Uplift Partnership offers have a big impact on the startups we work with. The 50 plus startups we work with over the last 5 years see up to 300 times happiness rating on how they're selling once things are clearer and more confident. So a process that works, and we've boiled it down today in terms of why the key reasons why deals are getting stalled to 3. We're going to dive into those 3 big reasons now. Let's kick straight off with the first one. Tell us about this, Kieran.
Tends to be a common kind of theme that turns up when you're speaking to someone. So let's say you've been ghosted for a while, and eventually you do get through to the person you're selling to, and they tend to tell you things have changed internally. So either the actual people that you were speaking to have now moved on, they've moved to a different department. Remember, we're talking complex selling here. Now, these sales cycles tend to be anywhere over 4, maybe up to 12 months. It's a long time if you're selling into a corporate. 12 months, things change quite rapidly. Quarter on quarter, things are changing rapidly. So a conversation that could have been super positive, tell you the truth, is irrelevant now, because things have moved. So what happens there is that internal factors, one of the excuses that they tend to use in the background will be external factors. Oh my God, the economy isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing. There's a government changing. We don't know what's happening here. It's summertime. Well, we can't buy anything in summertime because that makes absolutely no sense. The budgets haven't been signed off for this year. Oh, you know what? John needed to look at this and he's not here at the moment. There's so many things that are out of your control when it comes to those excuses that people are willing to put in front of you. Because tell you the truth, the real reason behind it is that they don't want to move forward. That's it. They're blocking you because at this moment in time, it isn't a priority any longer for them. And they're using these as a barrage of excuses just to stop you in your tracks.
Yeah, so those internal changes are such a big deal. We've all seen over the last year or so, here's the number of tech employees let go leading up to January. So all of last year and the beginning of this year, and those have continued, not just in the tech world, but in the consulting world. There's a lot of change going on, a lot of individuals moving. And one of our previous shows, we talked about the importance of addressing the large and complex buying groups. And we laid out 7 different types of buyer, from the champion, the end user, and 5 others. And it's really important with those internal changes going on to have those large buying groups mapped out, right?
Yep, totally. The thing is, the buying groups are continuously changing. So as a salesperson selling into complex companies, you need to have an understanding that just because you spoke to somebody a month ago and they were positive, there's no understanding if that person's still in that role and whether that thing they were talking about is any longer on their radar. So, they might have been told a month ago, yeah, that's what we're looking to do. Go and find a vendor that can supply this process, or sell, find a product that can solve this problem. They go and do this. However, then what happens? Things change internally, and suddenly that is no longer a priority. Oh, and also, we talk about a champion, one person within the company that is going to be flying the flag of your company, saying, this is definitely something we need to do. The problem there tends to be is that we try to put ourselves into a position of one person driving that deal forward. Theoretically, what we need is several people driving that deal forward if you're selling into a large enterprise. And one of the things that I do see when I'm talking to companies that are trying to sell into large organizations, when you talk about who they're speaking to, you suddenly realize where the problem seems to be. They're talking to one or two people, and they're expecting this one or two people to drive this potentially 50, 60,000, how many hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of deals through the line. It's never going to happen. And this is a major problem in most deals. Now, there are easy ways to get around this, and that's by doing a stakeholder analysis and understanding the landscape of the company where you're selling into. And if you're not doing that, your deals are always going to get stuck. Because if you honestly think that John or Rachel is going to buy on their own, you're going to be you're going to wake up and find out, no, they're not going to do that. And the good chances are that's why your deal is stuck.
That stakeholder mapping, really important. You've got these buying personas, and we know that actually getting into the details and getting into the weeds and writing these down and being very clear about who you're going after and where, we know that works. HubSpot reported that 2/3 of accounts were won when they had a stronger ideal customer profile, when they were more specific with the detail of who they were going after in each of the different slots within the buying group. So mapping that buying group out, doing that stakeholder analysis is proven to deliver results in sales. So that's internal changes, people moving, they might be leaving, you've got to map out that buying group, and then external market forces, you've got to be ready with the rationale of why that deal needs to keep going forward.
Yeah, so the thing.
Go on.
Sorry. There was a bit of. So we're looking at. Sorry, carry on. There was a bit of a mix-up from my side. I couldn't see the camera for a second.
The vagaries of the internet. We're good. So that leads quite nicely onto this bit about external factors are a reason why a buyer might not continue, and the way to counter that is through better value demonstration. And we've seen this time and again about just sales teams and sellers just not being great at articulating the value, right? The value of the solution, the value of the offering. And the truth is that all the way through, right, hyper-personalized content is required. You have to be super tailored. You have to be able to articulate the value specifically to the buyer and that opportunity with the company. And 87% are expecting to be delighted all the way through. So the stakes are very high. Demonstrating, articulating that value is absolutely paramount. What are you seeing as the kind of deficiencies, Kieran, of startups, tech startups, when they're trying to demonstrate or articulate value?
They're seeing value from their own point of view. They're not seeing the value from the client's point of view. Think about when you're buying something. No matter how much the salesperson is telling you, you're buying something, and remember, value is from the eyes of the purchaser. How do I see value? Can I see it? So has that resonated? Now, you might be saying that your product brings certain types of value to the client. Now, is that something that they truly believe, or is that something that they're just nodding their head along? And then you're trying to back that value up by sending them, the white paper and the customer success story that tells them exactly why that value is. Tell you the truth, they might not see value like that. So what I tend to find when I do, when I analyze, clients' deals, is there is a lack of understanding of what the need was. And if we don't understand what the client's need is, we're not able to tailor the value proposition to the client. Just because we've got a value proposition that's written, it's not written in stone. What we need to do is make sure that resonates with the person that we're speaking to. Because if it doesn't, you're going to be missing the boat there totally.
Yeah, and that's why we advocate so much those definitions and color we like to add to buyer personas, right? To really get into the mind of, depending on where I am in the buying group, what is the tweak for that value proposition? How can we delight them? And again, like the previous point, it's about doing the work, it's about being thorough, it's about writing it down. And only when that definition is written down, that makes it so much easier to sit at the other side of the table and say, rather than from my perspective, but from that buyer's, that individual's, what do I need to get this deal moving forward? And the truth is that if you are able to demonstrate value better, there is a 30% higher likelihood of a quality deal happening, according to Harvard Business Review. No surprise, right? Articulating that value, higher quality deals happen, they happen quicker. That's really about doing the work. You need to have the assets to hand, the right asset at the right time for the right individual within that buying group, tailored for them with a personal message. It's not easy, but if you want to be successful, that is what's required. Let's skip on to the third part, right? Internal changes, external market forces, big issue. Lack of value demonstration, big issue. We think the biggest one is this one at the top. Talk us through this, Kieran.
So when we're talking about selling into enterprises, and especially, when you've come from selling from an enterprise point of view, the one thing that every successful salesperson tends to do is qualify their deals. Now, what do we mean by qualifying your deals? Is that what you do is you look at your deal, you have a criteria of categories that you are going to score that deal on to make sure that you've qualified it correctly, that you understand it. Now, there are lots of different ways of qualifying a deal. Some of you might have heard of MEDDIC or BANT or all of these different versions of qualification. The major thing that they all have in common is, first, you need to understand the need of the client. You need to understand who they are, where they, the role of the stakeholders within that purchasing, whether they have the right amount of money. There's loads of different ways of looking at it. However, what I find when I'm speaking to people and I'm talking to their qualification, first of all, the majority of people haven't done qualification. It's seen as, that's something that somebody else does. It's not something that I need to do. And the other thing is, if they have qualified, they've qualified it once at the start of the deal. So again, when you're looking at a roadblock, and if you're thinking why your deal's stalled, that's a big red flag. When was the last time you qualified your deal? Have a look at your pipeline now, and have you sat down and qualified each of those deals recently? And when I mean recent, I mean in the last 24 hours. Do you really know if the need is still there? Do you know the person that you're speaking to is still engaged? Do you understand that the customer that you spoke to still sees the value the way they see it? Do you still understand who the competition are? There's all these things that you can do to make sure that the deal is staying on track. And if you do that systematically, you will always know where your deal is. And before it even goes red, you'll be able to act to it and do something about it, because that's how the top performers hit target quarter on quarter. They qualify consistently, and they qualify all the way through the deal.
Okay, and so that I thought 24 hours. Are you suggesting that sellers should be looking at all their deals every 24 hours? Does it need to be that regular to unstick deals?
It depends on how many deals you've got. Now, obviously, if you've got 100 deals in complex, what I very doubt that people have got 100 complex deals wandering around. They're all at different stages. The major thing here is, if you've got a deal that is supposed to be closing by the 31st of July, you should be sitting on top of it and making sure that that's going in the right direction. Now, if you find that client, for whatever reason, isn't responding to you, you need to get a response from them. That means you need to get on the blower, you need to get on the email, you need to do whatever you need to do to get to talk to them. Now, they might pick up the phone and say, hello, Alistair, you know what? Tell you the truth, don't want to buy from you, mate. Don't need it. That's great. We've got an answer, and we can throw that deal in the bin and we can get on to the next one. And this is the major problem with most sellers. What tends to happen is you kind of leave things up in the air and you kind of half dilly-dally around with it. To tell you the truth, the chances are there was no value from the client's point of view. They were just being very, very polite. And what you thought was an actual opportunity actually wasn't an opportunity. You were too busy selling, but you didn't really hear the client. So what happens is that this non-opportunity, you're now frustrated because it hasn't closed. I'll tell you the truth, it wasn't an opportunity in the first place. So be frustrated as much as you want. Sorry, I'm ranting and raving. I get really passionate about this.
It's great. And these two big bricks that we put together, the lack of value demonstration and deal qualification go hand in hand for me, because the more regularly you're qualifying, the better you're qualifying, the better you know exactly where that deal is and where that deal is for each of the individuals within the buying group. And therefore, what is the right piece of content, the right nudge, the right message, the right bit of support that is required in order to get that deal going. And that's what great deal qualification does. And we've, over the last couple of years, thrown our hat in the ring about where we think the best way to qualify modern deals is, and that we've taken a modified BANT process qualification method, and we've amended that, and we've built that into RevenueCoach.ai, which is our flagship SaaS product. It's a personalized sales coach for the price of a coffee, although it's still free at the moment. Won't be for the whole of this year, but it is at the moment. And that is a great place to start if you're unsure about how well or how thoroughly you should qualify your deals and the benefits that you can get from qualifying them comprehensively. Then head over to RevenueCoach.ai and you can see the kind of rigor and the detail and that is required, and then what the recommendations will be about what you should do next. So those are the three big things, right? The internal changes and external market forces is a huge reason they're getting stuck. Lack of value demonstration from sellers, and something that you can all see and hear that's very close to Kieran's heart is better deal qualification. It feels, my friend, like there's an awful lot of effort that's required, checking those deals on an almost 24-hour basis, especially the ones that are due to close soon. That feels like there's just more sales actions that are required by a seller. And you've told me that I need to be hitting my 618 sales actions a week. So to startup founders on listening live or back on a recording, what can they do? Talk to us about this 618 number and how that can be achieved.
So it's 618 a month. So no wonder you've been outperforming everybody, Alistair. If you're hitting 618 a week, then that is a hell of a pace. But still, it doesn't matter. 618 is a number. The one thing I will say, if you want to be successful, first of all, you need to have a sales process, and that process needs to be put into a playbook and that you follow. Now, that initially that might be very, very basic. However, you will be able to then replicate that continuously. Those 618 actions that you're supposed to do through the month, you'll suddenly realize that this is a process that you will follow continuously for every single person. The great thing about building those processes, and this is why I love doing what we do, is once you've built those processes, you can then tweak those to make sure that your deals don't get stuck. Because when you analyze your deals, you suddenly realize that everything's getting stuck in, phase 5. That's after the presentation. For some reason, customers just disappear. Now, what we can do then at that point, because we've got a sales playbook, is saying, why do we think that's happening? Let's speak to some of our clients. Even if we don't speak to our clients, what could we do to unstick or unstall those deals? Now we can create new assets, or we could try to do something totally different. Maybe our product actually isn't resonating with the client and we need to redesign it in some such way. Whatever it is, but once we've analyzed those, we can actually do something about it. The problem, what I find with a lot of startups is, and especially companies that are doing this, it's not that what they're doing is wrong. They just don't have that clarity on their process. And if you don't have clarity, then you can't be successful and your win rate's going to be lower. So
that's one of the reasons that we talk about clarity first. Our approach quadruples clarity in the sales process. When you lay it out, it's clearer to see. That in turn doubles people's confidence, and that results in 4 times win rate. So yeah, clarity absolutely critical that it comes first, and it's important that you've got the right tools at your disposal. I think that sellers have something like an average of 23 or something tools at their disposal, and one does have to be careful about that, because if sellers that are overwhelmed by technology achieve a 43% lower quota than those who have harnessed it properly. At the same time, if you're able to use AI and sales tools well, as laid out by Gartner, you should be able to find an additional 27% extra bandwidth, because prospecting and workarounds and meeting preparations can be done by intelligent technology tools. One of those is our 360 sales diagnostic that we covered a little bit earlier. This is a 90-minute one-on-one session with one of us, and you get a four-quarter plan for what you should be doing in sales in your business after 4 business days. It includes a full score and breakdown within 7 areas, bespoke recommendations for each of those areas and what you should do next, and a revenue roadmap calculating the additional income that could be generated by making those recommendations. If you like that, go and check out our 360 at theupliftpartnership.com/360. Thanks for today, Kieran. That was great. Internal changes and external market forces, big reason they get stuck. Lack of value demonstration and inadequate deal qualification. And hopefully for those listening and watching, we've outlined a few key ways, practical ways to change that. Our next show, we're going to be focused on AI in the sales process. We're starting to see some enormous gains of building AI into our process, using some of the tools that are out there, and it really is supercharging our sales. And we're going to bring our audience an exclusive session, a dedicated session on AI for sales in 3 weeks' time. It's not going to be in a fortnight, because I'm on jury service at Crown Court around the corner. So it's going to be 3 weeks' time from now. Thank you very much for your time today, Kieran. For those watching or listening, if there was a 1 or 2 key practical steps that you could leave them with about how to unstick that deal, what would that be?
Basically, I would get a piece of paper and then write every single deal where it is, and then I would qualify it. I would sit down and qualify. Now, you don't have to use a piece of paper. You can use Revenue Coach instead, and it's free, like Alistair said, and it will help you qualify. If you need help using Revenue Coach, you can contact either myself or Alistair, and we're happy to walk you through how easy it is. That is the easiest thing you can do, because once you have an understanding of what's happening in that deal, you'll be able to come up with a strategy on how to mitigate that problem. But until you do that, you're pretty much shooting in the dark.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think we're done now. That's just leaves me to say thank you for your time, my friend, and your expertise.
Thank you very much, Alistair.
See you all again next time. Bye for now.
See you soon.